This is the BFF Report. My name is Mike B, aka Phony, and this is our coverage of World of Warcraft, PTRs, 3.3, Arthas, Ice Crown Citadel, all the good stuff. Let's see, we got Pit of Saron going on, little gunship battle action. Not all of it, but enough. And, I'm not gonna waste any time. Let's get started.
Let's get the numbers out of the way. First, this is the second of 3 new 5-man dungeons in 3.3, and there are 3 bosses. Got it? Okay, this is the map. This is where you start. You want to bank right first. You avoid a bunch of mobs that way, take care of a couple things, free a few slaves, and then you're going to fight Garfrost. Then you want to come through here. A little bit of a surprise here, I'll show you later. And then there's going to be Ick and Crick. Take care of them, go up through the tunnels, get bombarded, fight Tyrannus, several unnecessary question marks, profit. Upon entering the dungeon, you will encounter an action sequence where some of your fellow Horde or Alliance will essentially get BIYM'd right in front of you. They turn into zombies and Sylvanas shows up with a panic boom! Now hold on a second. I don't know when this happened. Like I said, I've been out of the game for a while, but whoa, what is this? I mean, let's face it, Jaina Proudmoore isn't exactly the pride of the Alliance as far as looks, right? Whatever, let's move on. So the first time I tried pugging this was a complete disaster, and sometimes pugs do that to you. But being a rogue, I was able to go around and get some pretty cool shots. There's a couple things that I noticed that you wouldn't normally see, I guess, if you're just running through here killing everything. First, there's this gargoyles that come up and they pick the dudes off the ground, they start screaming, and then they get dropped. Then there's NPCs dragging around what looks like giant body parts. Then there's this big skull in the middle that I swear was following me. Kinda creepy. Yeah, definitely creepy. As I mentioned before, you want to go up the right-hand side of the map. It's pretty much a straight shot right into Garfrost, and it's the path of least resistance. Going along this route, freeing all the slaves will actually help you. Pulling a few skellies, there's a Proto-Drake Pat, not a big deal. You can actually pull more than one, as you can see in this clip, and you'll be fine. If I recall correctly, I believe there's about 5 groups that you'll encounter between the entrance and the first boss. Alright, boss number 1, Forge Master Garfrost. He puts out a debuff called Permafrost that he refreshes every 3 seconds, and the only way to get rid of the debuff is to LOS him. The debuff, as far as I can see, will stack, I think I got up to 20 times before I eventually died. And every once in a while, he'll turn around and hit you with this wave. It does a relatively significant amount of damage, depending on how many debuffs you have on you at the time.
Now, your bones will freeze. I'm frustrated. Giant underrats, please save Boss Great Shame.
Remember that little spot that I said I was going to come back to later? Well, let me just say this. When you're crossing this part, put your tank in front. The trash that you encounter on the way to fight Crick and Ick is relatively easy. Just burn them down, stay out of the poison pools, and you're good.
Must not be interrupted! Ick, take care of him!
This fight is relatively straightforward. Every once in a while, Crick, the leopard gnome that's riding on the back of Ick, will fling toxic waste onto the floor. Just avoid that area and you're fine, so the tank has to kind of drag him around. You will also randomly choose one person to chase down, so if you're that person, you might want to avoid him because his attack power is increased during this time. There's also a phase where he casts Explosive Barrage, which pretty much summons a large number of exploding orbs, and you just have to kind of move around to avoid it. And lastly, Poison Nova. It does about 30k damage in Heroic, but it's a 5-second cast, so just get away from him about 20 yards or so and you're fine. Following this, there's a short event where Sylvanas shows up, Crick pretty much narcs on Tyrannus, Tyrannus shows up, kills him, move on to the next section.
Do not think that I shall permit you entry into my master's sanctum so easily.
Now you have to fight your way up the ramp and through the tunnel. The mobs here are, again, relatively simple. Pull, burst them down, continue. When you're in the tunnel, however, you have to make sure you avoid the falling rocks. They do a decent amount of damage. The light at the end of this tunnel is 25 NPC hordes showing up. Thanks for the help, guys. Now you're face to face with Ryan Fang and Tyrannus. Things to note when fighting Tyrannus is that he has an AoE stun, an enrage, a knockback, and a debuff. On top of the fact that he actually hits pretty hard. So of all those things, the one thing you really want to pay attention to is the Overlord's brand, which is the debuff. If I, the DPS, have the debuff on me and I'm doing damage to Tyrannus, all of my damage is duplicated and placed on the tank as well. Outside of that, the fight is actually relatively smooth. If you get marked, just move out of the way from Ryan Fang's attacks and then move in DPS and take him out. And honestly, the primary reason why these fights go so smooth is because we're all roided out on these pre-mades.
Possible! Rhyme Fang! One! Brave champions, we owe you our lives, our freedom. Though it be a tiny gesture in the face of the light, you cut through the shadow with not only to your valor, but to the fact that no foe, not even the Lich King himself, can stand.
Take cover! Behind me, quickly!
Set aside their differences and...
I thought he'd never shut up.
So last Sunday, Blizzard announced that they were opening up the gunship battle for public testing. And as you can imagine, everybody showed up. So of course, when pugging a raid, there's always some jerk-off leader who wants to go through every little spec and every little piece of gear that you have to ensure that you are up to his standard. And in this case, I thought this is what was happening, and it very quickly turned out it wasn't. First thing I want to point out is something that we overlooked when we were going through this. If you look at this fight right here, there's Alliance on the left side and Horde on the right side. If you're on Horde and you go right, you will encounter more Horde NPCs who are battling abominations and gargoyles, and they will assist you as you make your way to the gunship. We went left. So I don't really have a lot of information on these fights. All I know is that the abomination will enrage, so someone needs to take care of that. So we finally make it to the ship. We're stoked. We're like, yeah, this is the gunship battle. This is gonna be epic. We get on. Great view. Turn around. There's another ship. We're approaching. The guys are jumping in the turrets. We're ready to take them on. Instance closed. It's interesting how fun things can be when they don't work.
More PTR action to come next week. Hopefully I'll actually be able to do a complete raid. We'll see what happens. Check me out on Twitter at IamTheMikeB. Send your questions, comments, concerns. I got thick skin, I can take it. And I'll see you next week. See ya.